Hello, welcome back to the Your Town television program. My name is Mark Baer. My next guest is the illustrious Tom Hood, architect, my fellow compatriot at the Museum of Monterey and the MHAA, former president of the MHAA, and recently Tom has rewired Casa Serrano with a fabulous new lighting so that our collection, you can actually see it after all these years. And it looks great. And so let's talk about Casa Serrano is what we'd like to discuss this afternoon.
Great, good to be here.
And so let's first of all talk about, let's give a brief history of Casa Serrano for people who don't know what we're dealing with here.
Casa Serrano is hidden in plain sight at 412 Pacific Avenue. And at the time it was constructed in the 1840s, it was one of a handful of hand-built adobe structures. And over the course of the next 170 years, beginning first as a private residence and then as reputedly the first California schoolhouse in California, and then as a long run as a very famous local restaurant, Caramatores restaurant, it is now a historic home at 412 Pacific Street. And it is, it's actually in very good shape with 2-foot thick adobe walls, and with the addition of some 21st century lighting, you can now actually see really what it was like, probably much better than it's never really been lit properly before. So it's really a beautiful place.
And let's talk about some of our beautiful art on the walls there.
Well, we have a variety of things. First off, when the home was purchased by Monterey History and Art Association, with the purchase of the home, which actually saved it from demolition, that's one of our missions, obviously, at MHA, was really launching preservation. We had a number of furniture pieces that came with the original residence. And so we have a collection of 19th century furniture, but also we've supplemented that didn't exist at the time the home was built, which includes the Joe Mora collection, very obviously well-renowned peninsula artist of the 20th century. But then we also have some very unique paintings of early Monterey and of early 20th century paintings by very notable artists such as Charlton Fortune, Charles Rollo Peters, and they hang right on the walls in the adobe for anyone to see. It's really wonderful.
And let's talk about how good they look now with the new lighting, because you worked your butt off, and
well, it was exciting.
People get to see these things like almost for the first time now.
Well, it was very gratifying to complete a very simple lighting project that does not compete with the adobe and doesn't interfere with the experience of going into a period style house. So we very simply took, I want to call it more or less stock pieces, and lit it in such a way that really highlights the art. And probably the nicest thing that I heard from a number of docents, some of them have been coming to that building for 50 years, is they've never seen the art as it is now available. It doesn't take away from the character of the house, and it brings to life paintings that were more or less in semi-darkness. Comments like, "I never knew there was green in that sky," and it's really wonderful. So it's a first chance for older members to actually see the space realistically with those paintings. And for people that have never been in the building before, it's actually a wonderful small museum gallery, as well as a stage historic house. It's quite an experience.
So one of the things that we're trying to do with Monterey History and Art and with the Museum of Monterey is put the collection together so that people can have a full experience. It's been locked up so long, very few people have been inside. They get to come at Christmas at the Adobes, they get to come to Art in the Adobes. We're open 2 to 4, I believe, on Saturdays, but I'd like it to be open a lot more so that people could buy one ticket at the museum and walk up the block and go in there and see our collections on a more regular basis, and kind of tell how it all fits together.
Well, as you and I recall when we were both on the board and I was present last year, one of the primary tenets of what we saw MHA really need to do is not only make its collections visible, but allow a greater interaction not only between Casa Serrano, but also between our big building, Museum of Monterey, down in Custom House. Under the understandable constraints of staffing and maintenance, access has been limited in recent years. And this year it's actually changed so that what the members really want to see, and now as a former board member, what I really want to see is with the opportunity to have the museum open during the week, have it as a point of entry on the path of history, which goes right in front of our building, and give people the opportunity to have a historic home experience, which is unique only to that building in Monterey, and see some absolutely priceless California art, and then have the opportunity to go over to our museum at Custom House Plaza and continue that experience. And that's really an untapped opportunity that with our docents and our structure with staffing, that I think that it's going to be able to be achieved in the next 12 months.
And as we get closer to Christmas, what I'd also like to tell people what a magical place it is. We had the Burns Supper there that was this brilliant event, and it's a very sophisticated, elegant, amazing Monterey treasure. And
yes,
so I'd like people to consider renting it for their party, for their Christmas party, for their wedding party. One of the things that we've been trying to do is get people into it, so that it's used. Our job is to breathe the life back into it.
You're right. Anybody that has had the opportunity to go to the building, it's a completely different experience, but it is a universal experience of being able to go into a period-style home and learn a little bit about that, but also not unlike seeing historic homes in Chicago or in Charleston, but it's such a completely different environment than other buildings that I've experienced as an architect because of its scale and its mass and its density. It's a completely different feeling. But then being able to have an event there for up to 65 people, we have a full kitchen, a beautiful garden back, and we have the period rooms in front. The Burns Supper last winter was something we cooked up super fast, and we had 50 people come in there, most of which had never seen the building. They not only enjoyed the Scottish dinner, a few enjoyed the haggis, but being in this 170-year-old building holding an event is really, truly unique. And it's one of the things that really drew me to originally coming on the board, is having that sort of resource and being a steward of bringing that to the public. It's really a treat.
Well, always being on the job here. Anyway, for people at home, if you go to museumofmonterey.org, you can see pictures of Casa Serrano. Also, if you have a good working dishwasher that you want to donate, we could use that. Always want to get a plug in.
Well, what we're doing
Christine
right
says,
now,
don't talk about the dishwasher, but we'd love a new dishwasher. If anybody has one at home, come my way.
you have to throw in the word commercial grade.
Yeah, commercial grade, thank you, yes.
There have been so many inquiries, I think really since the resurgence of the organization, art in the adobes, there are a lot of inquiries coming to rent our facility.
Yeah.
And its biggest asset really is the people that use it, because
right.
that's where the experience is really maximized. And the commercial dishwasher plug is basically the fact that to keep up with the demand of people wanting to use it, we want to be able to provide that. But it's a wonderful venue for 25, 30 people, group meetings, small conferences, weddings, receptions, and large dinners.
Let's talk about the garden a little bit.
Well, the garden itself is a fragment of the original property. They originally had the kitchen out back, of course the privy and a vegetable garden and some cattle or farm animals in the far corner. Now it's a very small, intimate space that can be used for a small gathering outside. When the restaurant was active, they used the back area there for staging, but also for seating. And it's the kind of place that if you have an event, it's very mild weather on that side of the building. It's full sun. Volunteers and the Historic Garden Lead and volunteers with the organization have really worked to keep the garden, I'm going to call it Monterey casual. It's not fussy. It's of the style of the building itself. And it's a great overflow space. There's a lot of opportunities there. It's a very neat little place right across the street from plenty of parking. And then you get inside and there's this absolutely remarkable artwork and furnishings that really make it a great experience.
Should we talk about how it fits into our greater mission?
As you know, our mission statement of telling the stories of the Monterey region with a particular in all its diversity, with a particular emphasis on arts, history, innovation, maritime, arts and history. History, it is the only realistically unaltered, intact, single-family residence in Monterey, staged with period furniture, That's history. But there's also the art of the pieces that are really quite remarkable. The arts component is it's multidimensional. It's not only a place where we exhibit very unique, rare paintings from early 20th century, but it's also where some of the paintings were brought when our founding members organized Monterey History and Art Association going on 82 years ago, this coming January. They started the organization in this, it was a restaurant in 1931. One of the founding members is now considered one of the leaders of early California plein air, Charlton Fortune. She was not only a member, she was a founding member, and in many later years, she actually came back and retouched one of the paintings that we have right now, hanging in a prominent location right in the gallery. So there's a connective tissue between people and events and the artwork that is it's very unique. We not only can do that, but we can rotate our collections from the Museum of Monterey and from other institutions in the areas we did for Art in the Adobes.
Okay, I think I'd like to discuss some of our other plans with that in terms of trying to build the library next door.
Okay, sure.
Because what we're trying to do is get more into this building and more into more of our history and make it more accessible to more people. You want to go into that? 'Cause
sure.
We need the public's help with this.
Imagine, if you will, that you're looking at a shot of the interior of Casa Serrano and then an interior shot of the Mayo Hayes O'Donnell Library. The first church built after the Basilica. It was used as all face until it became a library, it was a building saved from demolition and moved up onto Van Buren Street a little over 40 years ago. It houses the Mayo Hayes O'Donnell collection. Those are extensive print archives and photographs unique to our collection, our museum, but also numerous other private objects and books. And part of the plan here is based on an economic necessity, which is all these buildings have to be financially sustainable. We have buildings that essentially they need stewards, and the plan that the board has been discussing, and I've done preliminary designs on, is to move the collection itself, the Mayo Hayes O'Donnell collection, which is primarily books and archives, from Van Buren Street in the church over to Casa Serrano. Now there's a lot of work that goes with it. Next door to Casa Serrano.
Not in the building.
Right. The original Casa Serrano stays as the single-family residence, but there is a building that was built next door by the Cadamatoris, which was a retail store. It's where they sold their pasta. It's great. People used to wait in line just to buy it. Now, what we're exploring is we can actually move the collection to that space. We can get 90% of the collection in there, okay? That other 10% can be scanned and archived back at Museum Monterey. Here's what happens then, is you take a collection from Van Buren Street that has occasional visitors and researchers. Now it's down on Pacific Street, greater exposure, greater traffic. But with that, you can then work with your docents and your volunteers. You can now have Casa Serrano open more often. You can take tickets to events. You can go through, and you can go through the house, and you can then see the archives. So you're making the collection more accessible. But the other thing that happens is that church, which was a church for 70, 90 years, we can then either go back to its former use, which is now for weddings, receptions. It can hold 50 people. It's all beautiful, old growth wood on the inside. It's never been painted.
It's a outhouse garden behind it.
Yeah, outhouse behind it. It's a beautiful example of a parish church, one of 6 that was built in the late 1878 by a gentleman that opened 5 parishes, one all up in Calaveras. This is the most intact of all of them, and we own it free and clear. And we want to make that space available for more people to see, which means an opportunity for smaller weddings, for receptions. But there's another component to that. We're an arts and history organization. Now with that free space on the walls, we want to look at ways that we can start our next generation of collecting Monterey artists. So as the phrase has been kicked around, an art chapel. Imagine an intimate wooden church for a private reception or wedding, but the walls are then lined with new art by contemporary Monterey artists. We then make that connection that we started with was a connection with the artist organization. It's a difficult thing to pull off, and I've spent a lot of time working with the volunteers, particularly with Faye Messenger and Gary Spradlin, to really see that we don't harm the collection, that we preserve the Mayo Hayes O'Donnell collection, and we have enough space for that. There's one other thing I just want to throw in real quick. If we move it into that space, and right now we're in the funding stage, at the end where that building was attached on, there is, what I can tell, it's the only extent unplastered entire adobe wall in Monterey that I've been able to find, full height. So with a remodel of that space, you can not only come in and see the collection, you're going to be able to walk in and see the end of Casa Serrano as it looked in the 1840s. That would be great. That's worth a tour right there, to see real adobe.
How do you suggest that people help us? Because again, it's friends to help us, and it's funding to help us. And we really, the Monterey History and Art, dating back to 1931, has been for the community, by the community, and has been members of the community. That's what we're about. So again, you can contact me at the museum about this. People can contact you about this. And it's a wonderful project to be involved in. But we do need, to make this an actuality, we do need people's help.
Well, and as we've said before, our greatest asset are not our buildings, our paintings. Our greatest asset are our members, because they're the ones that really bring the life to these objects. They can email www.museumofmonterey.org, and on the home page, that's our home headquarters, right? This isn't just Museum of Monterey, this is Monterey History and Art. But if you go to museumofmonterey.org, on there, there is a piece about Casa Serrano. There's information about getting involved with projects, volunteers, there's rental information. If they have specific information about wanting to rent the space, they can contact either Maya Friedman at museumofmonterey.org or Marianne Drummond, or pick up the phone and call you, your ED.
I'm accessible.
Yeah, well, give them your phone number.
So anyway, Tom, great work. We've got a lot of exciting projects this year coming up. People come help us, join the team, and we'll be right back.